I never argued when she told me it was over. She stood there with her grandmother's antique necklace, gleaming against her throat, papers in her hand, her eyes colder than I'd ever seen. She didn't bother with explanations beyond a few clipped words. It's better this way. I've found what I want. Her lawyer's pen glided across the page while mine scratched hesitantly, each stroke carving out the remains of a life I thought we were building together. I had loved her through the years when we had almost nothing. Late nights eating, instant noodles, splitting the rent on a shoebox apartment, laughing at how the neighbors' arguments echoed through the walls. I worked 2 jobs so she could rest, so she could find herself. I told myself her reluctance to work wasn't laziness, but gentleness, a softness the world didn't deserve to crush. But when her grandmother's will was read and the fortune fell into her hands, it wasn't gratitude I saw on her face. It was hunger. She wanted freedom, indulgence, the thrill of starting over with pockets full of inherited wealth. I signed the divorce papers in silence. I didn't fight. I didn't beg. Something inside me shattered too deeply for words. That night, while she slept in another room, I packed a single bag and left without a sound. I erased myself from her world as if I had never existed. 2 days later, she threw a party. The whispers reached me through mutual friends. She filled the house with strangers, glasses of champagne spilling, music blaring so loud the walls shook. I was told she laughed louder than anyone, performing happiness as if it were a mask she could wear forever. They said she mentioned me only once, to smirk and predict I'd come crawling back, unable to live without her. But I didn't. I rented a room in a forgotten corner of the city. I worked quietly, rebuilt myself slowly. And yet, despite the distance, I couldn't stop imagining her in that house. The house we once dreamed of buying together. Now it was hers alone, overflowing with people who didn't know the sacrifices that had built her comfort. I pictured her slipping into another man's arms, not because she loved him, but because she could, because she thought no one would ever leave her. It was a friend who finally confirmed it. At her party, she had taken someone upstairs, a man she'd barely met that evening. Their laughter spilled down the staircase while the guests pretended not to notice, and she hadn't cared. She wanted them to see. She wanted me to hear about it, wherever I was, so I'd feel the sting of betrayal. But what she never understood was that the sting was gone. By the time she let another man's hands replace mine, my love for her had already been buried beneath the weight of her greed. The woman I adored had died the moment she chose money over loyalty, fortune over partnership. Weeks passed. Then months. Friends told me she looked radiant but restless, surrounded by admirers yet hollow-eyed when she thought no one was watching. She was waiting for me to knock on her door, broken and desperate, ready to forgive anything just to stand beside her again. But I never returned. I learned to breathe without her, to wake without waiting for her warmth. I discovered that silence can heal more powerfully than revenge. That dignity is louder than begging. And as she burned through her inheritance on fleeting thrills and shallow company, I built something steady, something honest, piece by piece. The last I heard, her fortune had dwindled. The parties grew smaller. The friends she had bought with champagne stopped calling. And when someone mentioned my name, she looked away, pretending it didn't matter. But her fingers trembled around her glass. She had wanted me to come back crawling. Instead, I walked away standing tall. And in that choice, silent, final, and unshakable, I won the only victory that mattered.